Millennials are America's largest, most educated generation in American history. A generation of ambition, education, and progress facing an uncertain reality. Born into an era of economic chaos, they face challenges far beyond what they were told to prepare for. They've had to rethink traditional milestones as they enter adulthood during global uncertainty. Their struggles mirror those of a generation before them, Japan's lost generation. The same story, different country, different time. America's lost generation goes beyond the numbers to capture the unique ways this generation is reshaping their future, in their own words. It's a story of real people, authentic challenges, and untold resilience. Explore the stories and reflections of America's Lost Generation by Cameron Cohen. Available now at soupllc.com.
Today on the Cameron Journal podcast, we are happy to welcome Nikki Anarado. This is going to be a new chapter in our kind of dating conversation we've been having. The last person we had on was Dr. Bruce Chalmers, and he was talking about what makes a successful relationship and all this type of thing. This time, we're going to go to the other end of the equation. Nikki is a dating preparation expert / coach / guru, and she is here to help women who have been off the market for a long time and are kind of like, you know what, my life could need one of those men things you do hear about. And she's here to help you get back into the dating market and do great, feel great, and be pampered and just have a wonderful, great time doing it. As we all know, the modern dating market, what a disaster. But Nikki has proven results. On her website, it talks about how after talking with her, women find a husband or a good long-term relationship within a year of working with her. So if you've been off the market for a long time and you're kind of like, I want to get back involved, but Lord, that was 20 years ago, sort of thing, all this sort of thing, Nikki is your girl. So welcome, Nikki, to the Cameron Joel podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, thank you. And I also want to mention that we've discovered Nikki through the Soupcast podcast network. I am the executive producer of the network, and I'm the worst at doing the network tag that I've told everyone else to do. So I'm trying to get in the habit of always mentioning the podcast network. But you've seen her already on Created in the Image of God, Wade Franson's show. I believe if you haven't done it, you're going to record with Barbara Brehan, whom we love. So I'm either your second or third on the network. So we love having you on all of our shows and just everywhere. We really appreciate it. And I want to dive kind of right into the state of the market, dating in 2025. On the guy side, I'm losing hope rapidly. But I imagine for women, it must be even worse and more difficult, especially if you're, my big age, I'm 37. So at this stage, it might, as Leslie Jones was on Drew Barrymore, and she said, there's just be one dating app called What's Left, sort of thing. And so the dating market in 2025 is complicated, all this type of thing. What do you think is the biggest challenge women are facing in dating today?
I would say the biggest challenge, especially for the women that I tend to work with who have been out of the dating game for a long time, is mismanaged expectations. Basically, and it's not their fault, you just don't know how much things have changed. And you can't really know unless you're just out there, or you work with someone like me that could prepare you for it. It's changed so much. It's just not like what it was, like you said, 10, 20 years ago. It's so different now. And it's cutthroat now for all age groups, not just, like you said, big age, 35 plus, which is really what I like to work with. I've heard stories from even younger than that having major, major, major problems. So things are different.
No, and I think that expectations piece is really, really important. I've been going through that a little bit myself. Like, I was in kind of a long-term thing for 5 years, and last June I finally said enough is enough. And but that kind of killed my 30s. We met when I was 31 and I was 36 when I finally said we're done and we've moved on. And so even in that time, it's like, what does dating mean at this age? What am I looking for anymore? I'm not doing the kids thing, not at this big age. And I have a medical thing where we're not doing that anymore. So it's like, that's not on the table. What am I looking for? How does all of this work? Walk us through maybe those early conversations.
Yeah.
Pretend I'm Cameron Rena and I've come to you to date for the first time in a long time. What's that first conversation you have with people? Walk us through, give us a little sample.
Well, my first conversation with someone that may have been out of the game for a while and want to re-enter is just getting to know where they are right now.
Yeah.
I want to mostly know them as a human being, as a person, their personality, what their interests are, what does their everyday life look like. And then we get into a little bit about what has happened in the past, what they've experienced, what patterns they don't want to repeat. And then we start to imagine what happiness could look like with a partner. So it's literally you begin to design it. You know how sometimes you may have had this experience, if not with your last relationship, one relationship at least, where you just fell into something and you just woke up one day. Oh, I guess we're together. I guess
Literally, she stayed overnight the first time. We're laying in bed, and she leans over and she's kind of like, "Am I your girlfriend now?" And I'm kind of like, "Yeah, yeah." And then I started snoring again. That was the conversation, like literally, like I'm half asleep, and then I wake up and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I did think about that." And like, what did I get myself? I'm like, "Oh no, I did think about it." Like it was a little crazy, So like, yeah, it was literally just and we literally like met on Tinder, kind of randomly, sort of thing, and that was the "Are we really a thing?" conversation. I was half asleep, so yeah, that can be a thing, absolutely.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of women, and sometimes it even ends in marriage that unfortunately doesn't last, and so they're just like,
Yeah.
I don't want to. That's one of the things that they just don't want to repeat. Where it's just like you just fall into something, but
Right.
it happens to all of us. It
Hard
is what it
agree.
is.
Yeah.
But at least when they speak to me, it's an opportunity for them to start to build it from the experiences they've had in the past. Who you are now is not who you were then. So considering your your lifestyle now is super important, and thinking about how bringing somebody into your life will enrich your life. How would it add to your life? Because with everything going on here and all the crazy stories you're hearing, it can really sour someone to the idea of, I don't want to open up my life to somebody that's going to make a mess of it or waste my time or, just steal my peace and my joy and I lose myself and all this. It doesn't have to be that way. We could actually design it and then make sure that whatever you're agreeing to is providing that. So yeah, that's what that initial conversation is like.
No, and I think that's so perfect because when I'm sitting here listening to this and being like, yeah, I still need to have that conversation. I don't have an answer to anything that she just said. So I'm sure the listener is similarly affected. Sort of thing, I definitely, I like, and especially I'm the workaholic type, as most men are, where when we're single, we just tend to work a lot and just kind of fill in the gap. And I especially now I think a lot of women face this too, because a lot of women, especially, our generation, very career oriented. Black women are the most educated demographic in the country. Sort of thing. I mean, there's a lot of it who I think are in that situation where, yeah, you take on the extra project. Yeah, you take on that extra role, that extra business travel for our corporate girlies at the F500 to fill in the gap and the lonely nights and all this type of thing. And then you said you really do want a relationship. And now you've got to start having those conversations, having those questions. And that's what you're here for.
Absolutely.
To get us thinking.
And you hit on some major points that I try to let women know about that they might not be aware about. The first is men are working a lot while they're single. They're working a lot. They're not hanging out in the places where you will hope to find them. So that's why a lot of women are very disappointed when they go out and they're hoping to find single men all over the place and they're not there. I'm like, you need to go to where they're at, which is working. Right. So you have to go to their expos, to their conferences, to seminars, anywhere where they're actually having to really be, but it's still a social element to it. So, those are really great places to go. And the other thing you hit on is workaholics. Men and women are a lot alike, work a lot when we're single. And that's why it's important to be intentional about making space for someone. Because what isn't fair is if you meet someone and you're excited, you like what's going on there, but your life is so crazy, so hectic that there's no space to nurture that. So let's
I,
make sure that, yeah, there's room for that.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. I got a piece of advice from somebody randomly on Reddit years and years ago. And when I
Okay.
first read it, I thought it was dumb, and I've grown to realize this person was actually quite brilliant. And
Mm-hmm.
he said, and it was, I'm bi, so I date men and women. This was talking on the
Mm-hmm.
gay side of my life. So, ladies, this will apply to you because it's about dudes.
Yeah.
And he told me, he's like, if there's not a boyfriend space, if there's not a boyfriend shaped space in your life, where's he supposed to go? And I
Right.
think I read that when I was 28 or 29, and
Yeah.
I was kind of like, that sounds ridiculous. Like, sort of thing, especially as someone who
Yeah.
has, I spent my last decade of my life in media and content creation, and it's been really crazy. And we're building this wonderful thing at Soup Media and all this sort of thing. And I thought that was kind of crazy and absurd. And
Mm.
then I also watched how my last relationship, which was with a woman, really suffered because of my work. And she's like, oh, we should go, we should do. And I would go and do. And I'm sitting at the trivia night being like, I have 5 things due tomorrow. I could be at home working right now, sort of
Exactly.
thing. And
Yeah.
then she's getting into that energy to be kind of like, I'm here, but I don't want to be here, sort of thing. And I
Yeah.
realized, like, yeah, you really do have to, like, let other stuff go, get that new staff member, hand off that project, don't take that thing, to make that space for that to exist in your life.
Yeah.
And
Gotcha.
I'm facing that again as I really want to start. I'm over my trauma. It's been a year. I'm untraumatized now. So I'm being like,
Okay.
thinking like in 2026, I
Hmm.
really want to get serious about this. And that means we need to hire 3 new people at Soup, and I need to offload a lot off of my plate to make
There you
that
go.
space. But
Yeah.
I've grown to realize, yeah, you really do have to do that. So I'm so glad you mentioned that about creating the space for it, because I didn't realize how important that was. It is a time, it is an investment, it is a project. It requires maintenance. There is logistics and shared calendars, especially if you're living with somebody, like
Mm.
household things, all of that stuff. And it does mean you're gonna do less elsewhere, but if your life
Yeah.
happiness is still good, you're not gonna miss the 3 projects that somebody else ended up doing.
Absolutely, for real. I mean, that's just real for myself as well. My
Yeah.
last 2 relationships before the one I'm in now suffered greatly because I was just starting my business,
Yeah.
and they're 9 to 5ers and everything, great guys, but they just couldn't get it. They couldn't understand it, and it kind of felt like um yeah, I was either being selfish or just not focused or something or other, but this is my dream.
No, I mean,
So
with my ex-girlfriend, I
yeah.
unfortunately I met her right as I was starting this version of my
Yeah.
show. And I, like,
Mm-hmm.
our first year together, I published 3 books, which
Mm.
was a lot. And
God.
restarted the show and restarted the podcast and all the stuff and building email, I mean, it was a huge lift to get back into the business after I'd taken a break. And you're
Mm.
absolutely right. It is, incredibly
Yeah.
hard, just like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, we're spending a great intimate evening together. Oh, good, she's passed out. I'm gonna go work for 3 hours.
Right.
Sweet
Yeah.
tight, babe. As I run away, like.
Yeah, it was just it became like a relief when the relationships were over, and so that I can do what I really wanted to be quite honest, that was my
Yeah,
reality at the time. It was never
yeah,
hard for me to really date. So I
right.
really didn't, and so I dove into my business, but then I knew that there would be a time once, like you're saying, you have to delegate. You got to get help. You got to get support. Got to line all that stuff up. I knew I didn't want to be single forever. And
Right.
so that's
Right.
something intentionally I had to do for 2 years to set things up so that I would feel like I could enjoy a relationship. So,
Absolutely. And no, and I'm in that place right now where I see it coming. And
mhm.
yes, and I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm training a new staff member now. You'll probably get to meet him,
Good.
Adonis,
Oh,
who's
good.
and we're offloading. I'm
Yeah.
offloading podcasts. I'm training him so I can get more things off of my plate, so that
So
it's
good.
not as crazy, because I have to keep up Suit Media and the Cameron Journal as well. And
Got
so
it.
Yes, and no, I think that's and especially for the corporate gals
Yeah.
who are so used to being the person that does it all and takes on the
Mm-hmm.
extra thing and whatever have you, it can be really
Mm-hmm.
hard to let go of that and watch that pass on to somebody else, a younger person, all
Yeah.
this stuff. It can be really hard. But you got to
Mm-hmm.
look I think you got to look big picture. What's the
Gotta look,
whole life picture?
gotta look at it all. Because I'm telling you, most of the women I work with, 55, and up. So between 55, 65. That's
Yeah.
most of the women I work with. And I would just love for them to get into our community and ask questions because I'm telling you, 10 years from now, if you're in your mid 30s and still hustling and all this, and that's the priority, you don't want to, you want to make sure you're making choices that the future you will be proud of. That's all. And if it
Yeah.
is diving headfirst in career, then let that be that. But if it's something gnawing at you that, wow, I would love to see how I can balance this and have a meaningful connection with a man. If that's something that's interesting to you, you can do that too. You just have to understand how.
No, I think it's a very kind of interesting and fascinating
Mm-hmm.
process. One of the things in the dating discourse right now that I wonder how many of your clients struggle with is there's sometimes kind of a little bit of a education and class mismatch. We've had more women getting college degrees than
Mm-hmm.
men for some time now.
Yeah,
That was
for a
even true
while.
when I was in college, and that was not recent. Sort of
Yeah.
thing. And it's kind of gotten worse. So I even imagine for
Right.
older women who are looking for an professional man, the pickings are somewhat
Yeah.
slim that way, sort
Yeah.
of thing. So and there's been a lot of dialogue about this sort of mismatch.
Yeah.
What's your advice to, women who are, looking for a guy and maybe he, to pull a really old example, maybe he, owns a business or
Yeah.
is a
Hmm.
tradesman or whatever have you, and maybe, you do work at that office or have some professional whatever have you. Like
Right.
how do you see that sort of mismatch or women saying no to Mr. Plumber or Mr. Electrician? What's going on with that? Because
Hmm.
there's this, I think, trope, this idea, this perception
Yeah.
that, women aren't okay with Mr. Plumber or Mr. Electric. And I
Huh?
don't necessarily know that that's true, but I wanted to see what
Yeah.
you thought about it. What are you seeing?
So I see a bunch of stuff. I see a bunch of stuff. I see, all right, let me address it as a whole, what I see out there in general. All
Yeah,
right. And then my thoughts about it. I agree totally what you're saying. There definitely are a lot of conversations from both sides of the aisles. Men feel some kind of way about them being overlooked because they are blue collar or not as educated or whatever it is, right?
right,
Versus women who feel some kind of way that men aren't accepting their personality type being like a type A personality, right? And
right,
they're aggressive, they're assertive, they get stuff done, they know how to speak directly, they're just not as foo, you know?
yeah,
And women are upset that men are not finding that attractive. So it's almost like over the last, 50 years or so, we
yeah,
have just kind of morphed into things that the either side has lost attraction to.
yeah.
So, what is the answer to that? Are we expecting the other side to change their tastes, or are we just literally going to hold on to our original type way of thinking about things? So it's really it's I like to think about things on an individual basis. I can't solve the world's problems, okay? But
Truly.
you have to understand what is really important. At the end of the day, that question that I asked earlier about how can having somebody enrich your life, I have six major things that women tend to point to when I ask them that question, and none of that has anything to do with the man making more money.
Yeah.
None of it. It's usually companionship. It's usually decision making. It's usually help me raise these kids. It's it's
Yeah.
usually I want a family. My parents are gone. I'm by myself. I don't have anybody. It's usually I want an emergency contact that's actually real and not somebody I just have on here just so I don't feel alone.
Right.
You want someone that's in your corner. And so, how much does that weigh against whether or not he earns more, whether or not he has an education?
I think it's, I mean, like I said, it's kind of this perception and dialogue. I think as is so many cases, individual mileage may vary. Sort of
Mhm.
thing. Yeah, I think, and I think it's also, I think a bit of a class thing as well.
Mhm.
I think if
Mhm.
you were kind of upwardly mobile, you maybe came from a working class background, but you kind of moved up in the world, all this type of thing,
Yeah.
your tastes are going to be a bit broader, as opposed to, because I travel in these circles, if you come from a upper middle class or wealthy background, and that's
Yeah.
all of you're not necessarily going to want to go in that direction. But
That's
one,
true.
yeah, so I think there's a kind of a weird class thing
Well,
there as
it's gonna
well.
be it's a class thing. I'm all for it if it's working.
Yeah,
Like I'm all for it if you're able to find what you want within your class.
right.
Congratulations, great.
Yeah.
But if you're having struggles, I will be curious to know why you're having struggles. I will be curious to know if you dated within your class several times and actually your value systems are not the same as
Yeah.
people in your class and you're
Yeah.
finding that out over time. And if that's the case, then is it possible to just expand? Because I want everybody to win. I want everybody to fall in love. I want everyone to know what it feels like to have somebody in their
Mhm.
corner and
Yeah.
someone that really values you as a human being. That's what I want. That's all I'm talking about here. I'm not telling anyone to settle below that because to me that's what's going to keep a couple together is
Right.
that real stuff. So, but if class is paramount, there's nothing wrong with that if that's important to you. Let me make that clear. There's nothing wrong with that if that's important to you, but make sure you're getting other stuff too. Someone that has your back and values you as a person.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, years ago I did a dating series for a very famous voice actress who I will not name,
Mm-hmm.
and it was all kind of about this stuff. And at the time she was, 40 and had never dated, never been married, and was
Mm.
actually still a virgin, weirdly enough.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And I kind of told her at the time flat out, I'm kind of like, ma'am, at this age, if you're waiting to be a virgin on your wedding night, that ship, plane, and car have all left the parking lot, the train station, and the airport. I'm not surprised that you're dating really great professional men your age who are kind of like, and we're not having sex at any point. Like that would be the
Right.
sort of thing. So kind of an odd sort of set of things and circumstances.
Yeah.
But I think that the other thing that I kind of knew at the time, and I said it in the series,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think it's kind of very pressing it now. It sounds misogynistic, but it really isn't.
Mm.
Men are not, a woman being really great in her career is not going to be a mover for most men.
Right.
I'm
Exactly.
weird. I love a working woman who's the master of
Uh-huh.
her domain. I
Uh-huh.
dated a girl in college who stood up in a meeting and said, "We need organization and we need to talk to Cameron because he's the man who can get us club money from the university." And I was kind of like, "I need to know everything about you immediately." We dated for 2 years. I'm like, I love that. Like, I'm like, I've been so turned. I'm so turned. Like, yeah, yeah. Here's your $400. Anyway, who are you? I was like, but I'm weird. Like I love that sort of thing. For a lot
Mm-hmm.
of dudes, that's not even on their radar. Like, sorry,
Right.
ladies, I know
Good.
that seems like that would be the thing that would bring them in. That's not a mover for most men.
It's not.
But but ladies, if you want to get into the whole, soft life, super feminine, heeks here, everything, that is a mover. You
Yeah.
can find that will can be a whole thing. And I think one of the mistakes a lot of women make, especially, my age in the late 30s, is they're leading with stuff that is not a mover for men,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah, for
And I
sure.
think, and it's like, you're great. We just need to, I work in marketing. We just need to change the packaging around, like sort of thing. And if you lead with the right things, then it's going to be more successful. You're going to find someone you want and you're going to have some happiness, which is really
So
great.
I call those things allure factors.
Mm,
So yeah. So this is the problem. And this is without even men being in the picture. Us women, we're very, very defined by how we help others. So whether it is how we raise our kids or how great of a daughter we are or how great of an employee we are or entrepreneur, whatever it is, serving others, all this. However, look, that's not really who we are at the end of the day. We're so much more than what we can give others. So the allure factors are essentially the qualities that make us as human beings, as individuals, the uniqueness, the unique attribute mix that we have within us that other people just happen to benefit from, rather than I'm identified by the great work that I did or the deal that I just closed or how much money I make and all this. So I just think that's part of the rediscover your allure journey, which is kind of what I take women through first, is to get to know you as a human being without all these titles, without all these roles, without how everybody else defines you. You define yourself as a human being and then lead with that. So because I'm sorry, it comes off as pretentious, and I can understand why sometimes men might be taken aback by it if they're getting the experience of a woman and the only thing she's describing about herself is what she does. It's like, okay, what else? And sometimes, because I know that happened to me, sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't know what else. So take that
Yeah.
time to figure out what else. Who are you as a human being without all that stuff? And I know sometimes it can be tough because, corporate really does it really does value us for what we can contribute. But we're so much more than that as a human being. And someone you want to do life with needs to see that side of you. So
No, absolutely. And that's, I think that's very important. I think if women understood that that's really, what gets men's attention, they would run, not walk, sort of thing. That's really what, guys are looking for. And it's quite it's really a big mindset shift, I think. But I think for the next reasons you talked about, so much of a woman's life can be defined by all these things and other people, most importantly, other people. So I think that who she is as a person kind of gets lost in the mix
yeah,
along the way.
yeah.
And I've even seen that, with my mother, who still
Mm,
came from a generation of women who really had that sort of thing. Um,
mm,
And she told me something very heartbreaking one time, um, where I said, "Well, Mom, you're getting to the age where we need to start recording your life story, sort of thing." And she very sadly kind of told me, "I don't feel like I have one." And which is tragic because she worked in Las Vegas dispatching limousines and tow trucks. She's lived this actually really cool life, sort of thing. Um, and worked at the Aladdin Casino, which is now the Venetian. I have a great picture of her standing next to the old Aladdin Casino sign on Fremont Street in Vegas. I'm like, no, Mom, I feel like there's some things we could talk about. But I think a lot of women fall into that trap,
yeah.
and she's been, her father passed a couple years ago, and she, of her four siblings, was the only one who wanted to deal with him, so she did that on her own.
Wow.
I did a lot of moral support. She would call me on the way back from the facility where he was staying and whatnot, and I would just hold space, sort of thing. But I feel
Yeah.
like when you're dealing with aging parents and kids, and her
Mm,
husband, my
mhm.
dad, has a very intense job that travels a lot, all this type of thing.
Okay.
I think along the way, even with my mom, who is a very strong, very strong personality person, kind of a real, very very sort of person. I think even in that, it's very, it's very hard to find who you still are in all of that.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think, getting back to yourself, rediscovering her, rediscovering all those, those things before all the other stuff came
Okay.
crashing in, and then that
Mm,
becomes your calling card. And the reality is men find that stuff very attractive. Absolutely.
for
And so,
sure.
but I think even, even regardless of dating, I think
Mm-hmm.
again, your given scenario, that's something we should all have on tap
All the time.
anyway, to remind
100%.
ourselves who we are. It's like, I have four titles at the bottom of my email. You've gotten emails from me. I have four titles at the bottom of my email, but there's more to me than that. And that's true for all of us.
100%. 100%. And so it's even attractive to women if they're sitting down with a man and he's able to share more about himself than, his work and stuff like that. It's just a great thing to your point for all of us. to
Yeah,
stay in
no,
touch with who we are.
no, I mean, I think if you called up and asked her what did you find attractive about Cameron, I can guarantee you what three of those things are, and none of them have to do with any companies I own, companies I work at, or
Right.
anything like that. That's not
Yes.
even in the top 10 like of things that she
Yeah.
found attractive to me and stayed around for 5 years. But like that's
Yeah.
not even there. So I think, but I think even just having that sense of yourself, I think is
Yeah.
so important. Because women fall into that trap all the time. So
Mhm.
that's a tremendous help. I want to move on kind of the other half of the
Sure.
of the equation.
Hmm.
Um, when you're deciding, once you kind of gone through the six allure things and you've kind of
Okay.
had a chance to rediscover yourself,
Yes.
and now you're ready to go looking for what you're looking for.
Uh-huh.
What does that look like in 2025? What's the best way to kind of get yourself out there? I know you mentioned kind of be where they are, where the men are at expos,
Mhm.
cons, all this thing, but like in terms of day to day, what are we wearing? What are we doing? What are we saying? How do we get this? Because
Yeah.
remember, your client hasn't been on the market in a while, so we got to get ready
Yeah.
to do this. What
Yeah.
how are you getting your ladies prepared to
Yeah.
go, meet these guys and get out there? Let's talk about that end of things as
So,
well.
yeah, there are definitely levels to this. And some of what we discuss will be, it really just depends on a woman. There are parts of this that I'm going to share that
Yeah.
women probably need to spend a lot of time in, and other parts, she's like, okay, I got that down. Okay. So it really just depends. So, the self-image part of things, how you present yourself is going to be extremely important, not only to draw men in, and not just about that. It's less about that and more about how a woman feels. A woman needs to feel comfortable in her own skin if she's going to be successful in meeting new people, period. So
Mhm.
if you're meeting men, like I just got back from 2 VIP days in the Midwest, one in Oklahoma City and one in Dallas, where I'll go to my client's city and help them explore the social scene in their city. Okay. And really give them the formula of how you can connect to men right here. And so in me doing that, I was shocked to find out that one of my clients, she's an extrovert, but she's shy. And so when we had opportunities for her to really interact with men, she clammed up on site. And I would have never known that unless I was physically with her to observe it. And so that really is helping me coach her differently so that I'm meeting her exactly where her needs are. And she didn't know it either. She had no idea that she'll be that petrified. When
Yeah.
I had another client that is an introvert, but was doing so well with these men. She's been working with me a little bit longer, and she just knew exactly what to do. We already got past the petrified part. So now she's actually able to engage with men. And she left that experience and that outing with, I think, probably 2 or 3 phone numbers or whatever from that. And that's something she hasn't been able to do for years. So again, it really kind of depends on where I meet a woman and what she needs to work on. So we talked about a woman feeling comfortable in her own skin, but we also need to talk about social settings. How's a woman actually able to navigate in social settings so she's walking away with what she's kind of came there for, right? And so I like to talk about the 5 C's of connection. So first is curiosity, second is conversation, and then the last 3 has more to do with how to maintain the connection, okay? But conversation is so important. All right. And a lot of times women have a hard time talking to someone that they're interested in. They clam up, they're so self-aware, they're like, oh, am I saying the wrong thing? Ah. And it's a lot. So understanding how to be cool, calm, and collected in a conversation with a man that will lead to the exchange of information or potentially a date. All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've had situations where I'm talking to a guy and then it just turns to a date on site, because they don't want the conversation to end. And so before you know, we're having coffee, before you know, we're having dinner. And then, and women that I've worked with have had similar situations like that too. So yeah, there's a physical component, but there's also the conversation component as well. If you want to just talk about practical ways that people are to connect and get offline. Stop online dating. Stop hiding behind these apps. There's a reason. I'm not saying that it can't work. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I have clients that are married right now from online dating. But if it's not working and it hasn't worked for a long time, usually it's because there's a fear associated with the way that you're presenting yourself online. So you need to face your fear and meet people in person. You need to meet people in person. And if that's not working, then you probably will need some support.
No, I think that's very helpful. I enjoyed that story a lot. I had never thought about necessarily that way, although I should have because I know so many people, but I never thought about like women struggling to talk to guys or kind of clamming up like that and all that type of thing. Because like that's a conversation we have in guy land a lot. Like the two guys I'm living with now, the last big experiment was my training them how to like ask for a lady's phone number at like a store, like when she's kind of at work, and you do it fast. You have less than 30 seconds to pull this off. Okay. And I kind of been training them and on like, like here's how to do this sort of thing, and here how you can like accomplish and pull this off, like here's how to do it sort of thing. This is a conversation we have all the time because there's a lot of nervousness and we're kind of bad at it and all this type of thing, especially with a romantic context sort of thing. But I had never really thought about how women might be going through some of the same thing, so that's really interesting. Although now that I think through many of my female friends, I can think of a few people who fit those sorts of things. But that's a really fascinating thing. But I think just getting more open and getting well practiced at it and well versed at it, that is that's I think that's. And it is, I think you would agree with this. It really is kind of a skill that one has to develop a little bit of.
Oh, that has to be developed. Let me throw this at you because you might be curious to know why women are nervous about this.
Do it.
Because they haven't had to do it. You haven't had to do it. So this is one of the things that I'm sharing with the ladies that times have changed.
Yeah.
We have been so spoiled rotten as women. All we had to do is put a toe out the door and there's men running to us. Okay. That's what women are generally kind of used to. If you were born before 2000. Okay. It was like that.
If your birthday starts with a 19, like
you remember those days when men were really after women for real, but it's just not like that anymore. So women have to be little more, I wouldn't say assertive and I wouldn't say approach. I wouldn't say that. You have to let a man know something, some level of invitation for him to approach you. And some of that has to be there. And even with that, it's nerve-wracking for women to do. Even if you're not saying a word, if you're doing small things to give a guy a signal that it's okay for him to approach, sometimes that feels like doing too much. And so it is a skill that has to be developed because times are just not like what it used to be.
I'll say from the guy side, we would, especially in 2025, post Me Too, all the conversation we've had on gender for about the last 20 years or so. Today's guy, especially if you're, 30s, 40s, our age people doing this, we're going to be a lot more comfortable getting a clear signal that you want it to go there. Because most of us are not trying to be creepy. We're not trying to be that guy. We know that guy. We don't like that guy. We're not trying to be that guy. And so giving a clear signal that you're even open to that conversation or open things going in that direction, all this type of thing is definitely, vitally important because today's guys heard the message. Don't be weird and creepy, which means a lot of the old-fashioned, weird, cold approach that we used to do back in the day, a lot of guys, we're not doing that anymore.
No, and we don't want it no more. So it's like, as women, we have to take ownership of what we've been asking for.
Yes.
We've been asking for less of that. And so men can't read our minds. And so now we are in a driver's seat as far as being selective of who we want to kind of approach us. And doesn't mean we have to jump in a man's lap. I mean, they might like that, but it doesn't mean we have to do all that. Okay?
I mean, you'll certainly have our attention. That's for sure.
But it's not necessary. But like exactly what you were saying, I think a signal, a clue, some sort of something will be helpful. I could see that for sure.
Yeah, especially, obviously you don't necessarily maybe want to set this up for the long term of the relationship, but if you're having an early conversation and you're a professional when you've met, met a guy at a conference, I'm using this now because this happened to me at a conference in Arizona. If you've met somebody, all this type of thing,
Yeah.
Suggesting drinks after the group
Yeah.
dinner,
I mean,
or
come
especially
on.
at like a later hour, like, oh, let's go get that drink at night. Like, that most
Yeah.
guys are gonna be kind of like, oh, she's asking me for a drink at night. Well, that's
Yeah.
something. So I think even something, and that's subtle. That's not overt.
Right.
That's
Subtle.
subtle. That's cool. So I think
Hmm.
that's gonna give an opening. That is
Right.
gonna put up your little sign. My little
Hmm.
I'm interested sign. And but
Yeah.
it's subtle, it's fun, it's a little bit flirty, and it signals that you're
Yeah.
ready to have an after hours conversation. Like the
That's
group
it.
dinner's at 7, everyone's
Yeah.
leaving at 8:30. Let's go
Yeah.
grab that drink in the hotel bar at
Right. Right.
9 o'clock. And
Right.
that we're now firmly in the after hours conversation. And most first women understand this is a after hours conversation, and that leaves us open to possibilities for things in the future.
Possibilities.
Yes.
For
So
sure.
and that's something that I think a lot of maybe women are uncomfortable with doing, or it seems
Yeah.
a lot forward compared to the old standard, as you said, but is a great
Yeah. I
on
think
ramp to getting that conversation going.
it will, and it depends on the woman because every woman is
Yes,
different. Okay, some women are okay with the late night type of conversation. Some women aren't. Some are way more
sure,
conservative, and
yeah,
that's okay too. My
hmm,
thing is, let me tell you what my message is all the time: is that a woman is not making decisions out of fear. Let's just get fear out of the way. You know what I mean? You have to be
absolutely,
bold sometimes. You have to do things that you aren't normally going to do. That doesn't mean that you got to hop in the sack. It doesn't mean you have to do anything that you don't want to do.
nope,
But letting someone know that you're interested, that you're curious at least.
yeah,
And that can also lead to, because there's some things that I help women do to lead to the man actually initiating things if that's what she wants. If she wants the man to initiate and actually after dinner pull her to the side and have drinks with him rather than other way around, that's something that you can do, but you have to know how to inspire his decision to do certain stuff like that. So that's a skill too. So it
absolutely,
depends on
yeah.
the woman. Mm-hmm,
No,
mm-hmm.
and I think that's the most important thing, like in all of this, because I think sometimes you can watch a lot of videos like this, a lot of, or a podcast or whatever have you, and go out and try stuff. And and I even say this to dudes, you have to find something that works for your personality.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work with your personality, it will have a 100% failure rate. Okay, like
Right.
I do not have visible abs. You don't see me walk around in public with my shirt off now, do you? My super hot friend Connor, he's fit as hell. That does work for him. Yeah, buddy, go outside without your shirt on. Someone will stop you
Right.
in the road. And this has happened to him. Like, yeah, someone will stop you in the road. I have to use a different strategy, but that's okay.
And
Like,
that's okay.
you know,
Uh-huh.
and also I'm super outgoing, extroverted. I'll talk
Mm-hmm.
to anybody. He's
Mm-hmm.
not. So when he finally
Mm-hmm.
talks to the girl at the cashier stand and gets her number, we celebrated that as a win for him. Sort of thing, because it was good.
Uh-huh.
But you have to find what works with your personality, and that's where it's like if you're listening to all this different media and you're trying something
Yeah.
that doesn't work with your personality, it's gonna have a failure rate. But if you can
Yeah.
find the thing that does fit with your personality, it's gonna work fabulously well, and that's why you should hire Nikki. See, just call her, sort of thing. Make this easy on yourself,
Yes,
sort of
make it
thing,
easy.
and just give her a ring. But oh, we're at 45 minutes into the hour,
Okay.
and the listener doesn't know this, but I told you, you're my third recording day, and my voice, as you can hear, is leaving the station. So let's do your final thought and message for people, and then let us know
Mhm.
where we can find you and get in touch with you online.
All right, sounds great. Well, dating isn't dead. All right. So I just want to let ladies know, if you're curious, if you feel that yearning, if you just feel like, oh, I want to do this, but I don't know where to start, it's okay. There's a place for you. There's a place
Yeah.
for you. If it's been a long time and you feel like there's no hope, why should I even try? Uh-uh. You need to get in touch with us here at Prepare to Be Pursued. Okay. You can just put that in to Google. It's going to pull up everything. Okay. We have a 5-day challenge called Make Room for Boaz, to the point that was shared earlier, that you got to make space in your life for something that you want. And so that's a 5-day challenge to help you understand why that's important and other things. We go through the Book of Ruth too, for those of you that are into the word. So yeah, Prepare to Be Pursued. You can look me up, Nikki Anarado. You can just find me anywhere. Facebook, TikTok, all the things.
Yes, and I've just realized I totally butchered your name at the start of the show, but that's
No,
okay.
it's good. It goes either way. Anarado,
But no, thank you
Anarado,
so
either way.
thank you so much for coming on the Cameron Journal podcast. It was delightful.
Likewise. Thanks so much. I appreciate being here.
That's all for this episode of the Cameron Journal podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Visit us online at CameronJournal.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I love to talk to my followers and listeners, so please feel free to get us on social media at Cameron Cowan on Twitter, and we'll see you next time on the Cameron Journal podcast. Thank you.